Recording is on.
Hello, here we are in Jitsi, and this is Bitcoin Design Guide Jam session number 24 already. Thanks all for joining, thanks for watching. And we just have, let's see, what are we going to talk about? We'll catch up on the progress of the design guide and what we're working on, and then also try to plan out the next steps. And there were two suggestions made. One by myself, which was to focus the next milestone on the daily spending wallet case study or reference design now, using the wrong term, which we still had a bunch of open issues around Lightning. And then a second part of it was cleaning it out a bit because we moved a lot of stuff around in the guide reorg. And there are some things that are more relevant for on-chain wallets in there, and those should be kind of moved out. So the daily spending wallet can be much more Lightning focused. And then Stephen, you had a suggestion to talk about the merchant section. That was the second thing. And you were hoping Patricia would join, right?
Yep, and she just hopped in a second ago.
That's awesome. I can't see it because my Jitsi toolbar always covers up the name of the person exactly in that spot.
Same here.
Hey, Patricia.
What's up, Patricia?
Hey guys, how are you?
Good.
Hanging in there.
After Easter.
Good, thank you.
So you in Florida, but there's a bit of a background noise. There's like a little waterfall situation going. I heard there's a crocodile here, which is a little sus, but yeah, excited to be hearing and joining the conversation. Cheers, Bosh. Cheers. Wow, it's 9 a.m. here.
Yeah, it's 9 p.m. 9 p.m. here. Happy hour somewhere.
That's right. All right, cool. Well, I won't distract you anymore. But happy to be here.
Okay, cool. How about we start with just seeing where everyone is? Because I think the last 3 weeks were kind of loose work, where I think the last jam session, we just talked about getting the guide reorg ready for the Bitcoin Miami conference. And then we did that, and then we kind of loosely worked the 2 weeks after that. And so how about we catch up on that real quick, and I'll pull up the roadmap here in the background.
I just had one thing I'd like to suggest as well. I wouldn't mind if we did these jam sessions once every 2 weeks instead of once a month. Because I find they're pretty good for like allocating what we're doing and just get an update on what we're working on. Because a month is a big time, and I feel like a lot, like particularly when we're doing all the Lightning integration and the reorgs, like a lot will happen in a month. I think it'd just be a bit easier to maybe do it every 2 weeks, but just a
so every 3 weeks right now. And that's where we have to kind of figure out how it works for everyone. So let's say one person who spends a ton of time on the guide, for them the pace might be too slow. For other people who like tend to do 10 things simultaneously, it might even be too fast. So we'll just have to get everyone's input on that.
Easy.
But also we don't have to sync on everything all the time. It's more like the things we are gonna on a tag team together. But yeah, good topic. How is that? How does everyone else feel about that 3 week rhythm?
You know, I'd personally be fine with a 2 week, a 2 weeks, sync. Yeah, it does kind of go by a long time without any syncs. 3 weeks is kind of a long time. Now, having said that, there's also nothing stopping people who want to sync from, just doing that on their own. Does it have to be a scheduled, design guide jam session? Not necessarily. So I could go either way on it. If it was every 2 weeks, I'd certainly show up.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I don't have a particularly strong opinion, especially since I'm so new to these calls. But same as Stephen, happy to go either way. So yeah, it's the same.
Okay. Well, it's something we should probably just not figure out on this call, but ask in Slack anyways. And if we end up doing something that's every 2 weeks, we could even alternate times to accommodate people in different time zones. Okay,
Sounds good.
let's take a note here. Ask in Slack about yeah, and the reason why it was 3 weeks in the first place was because 1 week we had jam session, 1 week we had design review, 1 week we had community call, and then it was this nice rhythm. That's just where that comes from. No other real reason. Do you guys want to talk about, guys and gals, want to talk about anything that we completed, anything that got merged in the last few weeks, or should we focus on the future?
The future.
Future.
Okay, cool.
We had a ton of merges, but I mean, it wasn't like, oh, we added a giant section. I feel like it was like a lot of collection of small stuff.
Okay.
Well, that was kind of like the refinement milestone that I kind of got up, which I haven't really filled out with all the issues because I want to address all the other ones first. That is kind of like a bit of a future looking as well as kind of tidying up. So it's kind of like a bit of both, I guess you could say.
And this one is Milestones. This is the one you talked about, right?
Yeah, which I haven't really done much with it, but I just made a few issues. But I kind of wanted to make an issue per page, and I was going to suggest maybe we can allocate people like a page similar to what we did when we did Lightning initially, like how we segmented all the pages, people put their hands up, pages they wanted to work on, and then we kind of just went through like that. But that would be my suggestion about tackling that. But yeah, we'll talk about the other stuff first, the other milestones.
Yeah, so let's get this one real quick out of the way. Milestone 14 website usability. If anybody wants to help test this, Mo has been fantastic with that and has done keyboard testing and reading up on usability testing, accessibility testing. So that's awesome. It's just kind of tedious until you actually figure out if it's all working correctly.
If I can, sorry to interrupt you, but if I can chime in there, there's a long way to go with that one, even with my understanding. So, I'm busy creating the document, just some guidelines at the moment, but this is not specific to Lightning products. And that's where the switch needs to happen, as you very well pointed out.
And so this issue is just for the Bitcoin.design website to make sure that's accessible.
Oh, the testing. Oh, I thought you were talking about usability guidelines. My mind went one step further already.
Yeah, otherwise this would get too big. But I think we can figure this one out in the next week or so. It just requires more tedious testing and tapping around.
Yeah.
So what exactly is left to do there? Is it just a matter of like, is it like testing every single page on the site, or is it testing like a sample of several different pages on the site, and then implementing a fix if we find anything?
Yeah, it's more testing a sample on a few different device types. So I added stuff like the skip to content button that allows you as a keyboard voiceover user to just not have to tap through the navigation every time you land on a page. Just a bunch of small stuff like that. I think the stuff that's kind of broken still is on expandable menus, the focus management.
Yep.
So that's pretty intricate stuff. And then testing, just doing all the testing on an Android, on an iOS, maybe on Windows. And I think Safari and Chrome, they use different keyboard keys for navigation. It's just kind of testing, and I'm just finding small stuff.
Stephen, if you want to figure out the mobile testing together, I'd be happy to jump on a call with you and maybe read us some stuff beforehand and then jump on a call and figure out the mobile testing, because I'm finding that one quite something to get my brain around. I've never done accessibility testing on a mobile before. So if you want to we each watch some YouTube videos together and then just, decide to do a mobile test each. I have an iPhone. So yeah, as you wish.
Yeah, and I think the goal is not to get it absolute 100% perfect right now. It's to get it much better, to get it to the 80-90%. And then we can do another iteration. So mostly just trying to use the website like somebody who has those needs does, and then just make sure it all works kind of properly and nobody gets stuck. And then, we can do another iteration later. because I think getting it 100% perfect will be a massive endeavor.
I'll go over the test tomorrow for browser. If you guys are going to be looking at mobile, I can test that for you.
Yeah, please add a note in if you're going to test something, just put a note in the issue, and then just say, I'm going to do this.
Is there like a list anywhere of all the stuff that you want to have tested in order to satisfy this issue?
No, because I'm not expert enough to actually know all those things.
Okay.
I have some experience with this testing, but it's been a while, and yeah.
Christoph does have a very short, succinct list. That Google Doc, which you shared with me, Christoph. I mean, yeah, that one.
This is the one that you did.
Oh, this is the one that I did. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of how I did it, but it's not finished yet because I haven't done the iPhone one yet.
Yeah, let me just share the other one. Yeah, just trying to take notes on this stuff, because I think also if we can provide some, because we all, we're all trying to figure out how to actually do this in the first place. If we can put some good guidance together, then other people, it'll be easier for other people, and then they're more likely to actually do it with Bitcoin applications, with project websites, and all of that. Anyhow, so I hope we can get this issue done, and then we can wrap up milestone 14. Then we still have milestone 15, which is the guide reorg, which is mostly, I think it's more like a cleanup thing. That we need, some of them we need to maybe get rid of, other ones maybe we just need to take out of this milestone and then close that one down, because like improving search is not necessarily a guide reorg type of thing. It's just improving one feature of the website.
Yeah, I reckon I'd agree with taking that out as well. Create case studies. I'll just turn that into a normal issue and move it from the milestone. Like we'll create that when we have content for it, I think.
Yeah.
I'm working on, I'm going to be submitting my liquidity PR today. And I should be able to get the other one for the guiding user to Lightning issue as well. And then after that, I was planning on moving on to the updating the reference designs, the shared account and upgradable account, yeah, those ones, improvements to reference designs. I think we had talked about splitting that into 2 issues, but same difference, basically. That was going to be my next task to work on in terms of milestone 15.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So you want to move on to the reference designs, okay? Then maybe Bosch and I and Mo and whoever else is interested can focus on the Lightning and daily spending wallet.
Yeah, that works.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Sorry, which
Tag
one is
team.
my name? Oh, the channel reserve. I only have to do the reference designs in Figma, and then I think it's pretty much finished. That will be finished by the end of this week.
Sweet, sounds good.
The Figma designs.
And then it also has to go into the guide, so it needs to be.
That's where I'm going to need you guys' help.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. Just say whenever you are ready with the information so far, then we'll put it in. And typically, once you move things from Google Doc or some document into code, it usually requires more work, because then it's like in its final format, you realize, okay, it doesn't flow that well, or this thing is too long, or this and that. You just realize a bunch of stuff, and then there's usually some more refinement to happen. Just as a warning.
As a heads up, yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then, I mean, otherwise, everything in milestone 13, we pretty much have already assigned.
Yeah, I'll have my 2 PRs. I think it's 2 or 3 probably done tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'll fix that NFC PR and I'll split that into 2 as well.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, let's go through these real quick. Reconsider guide section landing pages. That's something that can wait, probably not a big deal.
Ooh, sorry. I see one that I'm very enthusiastic about.
Okay.
Clickable prototypes. Yeah, I just don't mind
That's actually a monster issue. Just to let you know.
Okay.
So no, I mean, I just want to provide some context for you. I don't want to like discourage you from working on it, but the exact context of this one is that we sort of already have a like we can kind of obviously make clickable prototypes in Figma, and there's kind of places that we've done that in the guide. And I think part of this issue was trying to determine like could we integrate clickable prototypes like more tightly into the website and also do it in a way that's more privacy preserving. So there's kind of some opposition to directly embedding the clickable prototypes directly into the website, I guess due to like Figma's tracking and all of that kind of stuff. And so a lot of that issue was like kind of conducting an exploration around like are there other alternative ways that clickable prototypes could be integrated into the website. So yes, please, if you're interested in it, please do work on it. It's kind of an exploratory and very open issue.
So is it the first step would be finding out which tool to use that I can use to create clickable prototypes that doesn't have any tracking?
That would be part of it.
Figma?
Yeah, so tracking is not the only issue because a year ago or a long time ago, we tested this. I think there's still some code in there in the JavaScript code to actually expand Figma prototypes. But the thing is, it was like 1.4 megabyte to load every plugin, and a ton of it, every embed, and a ton of it was fonts. So it slowed down the page a ton. And it was a completely broken experience on mobile. So what Figma does is on desktop, it shows you a nice like a black background and a nice frame of a phone. But on mobile, it thinks you actually look at this full screen on a mobile device. So it does not show a frame. It just kind of shows you the clickable content, and it acts like it's very hard to scroll past it because when you try to swipe past, you'll swipe inside the prototype. So there were some pages where you couldn't get past the prototype because it would what do you call that? Eat all the mouse events. So it was just like it was privacy problems. It was huge file size, and the interaction just wasn't there. The interaction system or model or whatever.
So people were saying that when we test the clickable prototype on our mobile phones, it's just horrible, basically.
Yeah, it just didn't work when you used it. It was very, very obvious.
Does anyone have any ideas around how else to create clickable prototypes, or is that really requiring research? Because I only know of Figma. I mean, I can create them in Figma. That's really fun to do. Really fun.
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple different ways to approach this. One would be to get a second set of eyes on the Figma thing again. So maybe try and like revisit that topic. I've had this experience on my blog too, where I'm embedding Figma prototypes and I don't like the default parameters. So I've solved that problem in that case by writing some of my own custom CSS that helps facilitate it. So very well could be that we could do some additional work trying to kind of hack at and jerry rig the Figma thing. Maybe we could make a thing that makes it delay the loading of it and all of that. So you could attack the problem by we just do a technical reevaluation of how to integrate the Figma embeds into the site in a better way. Another thing we could do is we could look at a pen pot, which we're going to be looking at on our Learning Bitcoin and Design call tomorrow. Maybe the pen pot thing has gotten to the point where it's better. And then I guess the third kind of thing, which is like really on the far end of the spectrum and is kind of extreme, but is possible, is just kind of, building our own kind of prototype methodology, which I had to do way back in the day before all these cool prototyping tools existed. I remember having to export frames out of Photoshop and writing like a little JavaScript app that would, like, oh, if they click, 100 pixels to the right. I'm sure there's like better, more, easier ways that could be developed. But so like some kind of homemade solution that might be over engineering the problem though. So I think there's kind of a whole lot of different possibilities that could be explored. And I mean, ideally, it's something that's easy for us to bang out prototypes in the future and still meets the kind of requirements of having the site be a little bit lean to download and a little bit private. That probably wasn't a clean, coherent answer.
No, I've made some
on my
notes.
mind.
It makes a lot of sense. You said technical reevaluation of how to integrate Figma, and then maybe Pinpot, and then number 3 is build our own prototype methodology. But Bosch, you test Zeus out on your mobile, right? You kind of, but that's not a prototype, right? That's just
it's just using Figma, the Figma app. You just download a Figma app on Google and Android. I mean iOS and Android, and you can just cast a prototype from Figma to your phone. So it's not, it's pretty much the same situation we're in at the moment.
So you first have to download
This app called Figma. I think it's just called Figma. It used to be called Figma Prototype.
Mira?
I think. Yeah, I think it's just called Figma now. I think they updated it, but yeah, you can screencast prototypes to your devices.
Could that be even so simple as being the solution as telling people to download the app before testing the prototype? Or is that seemingly too simple?
Well, it may be a sort of situation where like you have to do some kind of mobile detection on the website. So like, maybe it's based on screen size, maybe user agent string, something, but we kind of on our website try and detect how we think the user is viewing the site and, deliver a different experience if it's mobile. So, maybe the mobile experience is something that, instead of loading the prototype inline, it causes the prototype to open in a new tab or, encourages them to get the Figma app or something to that effect. But I think part of that, the Figma app could be a solution, but I think another kind of piece in that puzzle would be making the website deliver a different experience based on how they're viewing the site.
Yeah. So I just clicked here in my background this prototype button and on my phone, and it actually opens the Figma app and pulls up the prototype there. So that's how it already works.
That's cool.
That's pretty
The
cool.
app automatically pulls up.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, my focus would be more on actually creating prototypes and not worrying so much about this technical stuff.
I'm happy to
because
create
we don't
prototypes.
have many prototypes actually in the website.
Really enthusiastic about that. So, send me the Figma files, tell me which user journey needs to be created, and I will start, creating those clickable prototypes. I genuinely enjoy clickable prototypes. I have no idea why, but I just do.
So,
I think it's because it's very much into the research part of things and having a user test things out. So I think it's a very valuable skill to have. Being able to create, and I think it's very relevant to the Bitcoin industry because obviously you're not going to do any usability testing in their own personal, Bitcoin wallet. That's not going to happen. So I think it's really important to be able to create, good clickable prototypes.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm assigning this to you then.
Yay! I'll have to make sure I can focus on other things.
I think that's fantastic. If you want to produce some clickable prototypes for the site, just merely from a project management perspective, I might suggest we create different like issues for specific prototypes or something like that. Because that's very broad and there's a lot of stuff on the website, so it might be better to like create issues for like I want to see a clickable prototype for this section of the website, and then Mo gets assigned to all of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Okay.
Most enthusiastic.
Once milestone 16 is done and we refine the daily spending wallet, one thing I want to do for each page is make sure the wallet UI kit designs are reflective of what's in the wallet UI kit in the guide. And then once that's all refined, we'll then turn that into one big prototype. And that would probably be like a massive one that bring together everything in that section into just one big prototype. People could go through the whole thing visually and like, yeah.
There is a flaw in these prototypes because I have created some in the past, but they break, and then you have to keep on going back and checking them and check if they're still working. Because then you can have it on the website and then someone will go use it and be like, no, this is not working. And then it's just broken and you had no idea. So
yeah, that's a little bit of a problem when you link to an editable Figma file.
yeah.
It's almost better if it's a community file because there's a publishing process tied to it.
Okay.
But yeah, stuff to figure out. Or if we find a way to download them and run them. Okay, cool. Should we move on to the next one? Okay,
Yes.
we've already been at half an hour. So how about we I'll just clean up some of the other milestone stuff. Let's go through them real quick. Reconsider guide section landing pages. I'll create individual issues for each one. Improve search. We'll just remove the guide reorg title and turn that into a general request. Create case study section separate that also can become its own thing. Clickable prototype, maybe also. And then we can kind of wrap up this milestone so it doesn't stick around forever. How about that?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay. And then, so milestone 13 and Bosch, your new one about milestone 16. Should we keep those two separate? One being basically, one being all of these small enhancements that have just been suggested over time, and the other one being a review of this whole section for continuity and consistency and potentially moving some content out. Should we just see those as two separate things?
There was some issues in milestone 13. I commented on them. I'll need to go through them to see which ones were, but that would probably be better tackled within the issue in milestone 16, like whilst they're going through the refinement, and then just may as well add it like while they're kind of going through, because there's some things that they might change based on the context of the changes in the refinement. So it can be better to do it all in one. But I don't know if you guys want it in little smaller PRs.
Yeah, that sounds a bit messy, to be honest.
But I think it could get messy as well if we like add stuff and then we go do a refinement and then we have to change the stuff that we just added. So that's kind of like, creating extra work that doesn't need to get done. But yeah, it will result in big-ish PRs, but more efficient PRs in my mind. But
okay, well, to keep things simple, I like your proposal of creating one issue per page for this revision, and then we can just go through those. And with the milestone 13, they're pretty much all assigned already, except for this one. Add content around how pull payments would work. Does anybody already have any thoughts on that?
Might be a little bit early to kind of do that because that's only going to really come around with bulk 12. So maybe we could just take that out of the milestone, and we can tackle that a bit later on, like once we kind of get to exploring kind of bulk 12 UX a little bit more.
Punt.
I like it. No, some of these milestones have been floating around forever. We need to keep things simple here. Okay, not working. Clear. All right, much better now. This should update. Okay, so we can work through this one, and everything's assigned, so it's pretty good. And we'll try to be a bit forward-looking towards milestone 16. But otherwise, let's not get stuck on them for too long, I would say.
I reckon the receipt. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Just the creator receiving Bitcoin page. No one's assigned to that yet. It's in milestone 13. I reckon that'd probably be better to tackle after milestone 16, because it would be probably pretty influenced by all the content gets revised in milestone 16.
Okay, just put a note in there then. And if you're working on both of them, then are you?
I haven't assigned myself, but like if we get through milestone 16 and no one's put their hand up, I'll do it. We can do
Okay.
that page.
Okay. Okay, then we'll create these new pages separately. Let's create an issue for each page in the daily spending wallet. Reference design for milestone number 16. I'll also do that. Okay, should we go through over any of those, or should we move on to discuss the merchant section, because that might be a big one?
I'm cool to do merchant. We're all assigned, I think. It's pretty good to me.
Yeah.
So just before we have in that real quick, do you think in the next 3 weeks we can get milestone 13 done out of the way and already get, and how far, if yes, how far can we get into milestone 16? What's your guess?
I reckon we could get a couple milestone 16 PRs up by the next jam session. I'm pretty keen to start getting into that. I'm going to have my 3 issues in milestone 13 done in the next 2 days, and then I was going to start on milestone 16 stuff straight away because I don't think there was anything assigned to me in 14. So yeah, I was just going to jump into that.
I think we can get 13 done.
I agree. If someone can just, help me out with figuring out how to create a page. But I know that, you guys are very supportive with that. I'll be happy to get the channel management online.
Awesome.
Channel reserve
Excellent.
online.
Awesome. Okay, cool. How about we move on to merchants? And I have nothing to pull up or show here, I guess. Who wants to lead? Who wants to start this? Stephen, you suggested it. How about it?
Yeah, so I can outline some of my initial thoughts here. Let me go ahead and then Patricia's also shared.
Yes, there is an issue.
I just tossed in a quick link,
totally.
and thanks to everyone who gave feedback. That's pretty much what I was hoping for, and I think I was too conservative with sharing some of the user interviews. I really don't want to leak people's personal information. It's taking so long to take out the identifiers of what their business is and where they live, and because I feel like those were some of the answers to the challenges they had. So Stephen, I'm really glad, had asked me some questions since he was doing liquidity research, and I do want to get this out there and make it available for people. So I will take all the feedback I can get, and I think what Bosch brought up was pretty interesting with the case study. So I will hopefully synthesize these and have them available for you guys very soon. But I appreciate the feedback. Sorry I interrupted, Stephen.
No, you're okay. Yeah, thanks for sharing that link. I'm not sure, not everyone on the call may have seen that one yet. Patricia and I've been, like she said, been kind of chatting about some of her research, and I think she's done a lot of really interesting work here. And I was kind of surprised by some of the things that she learned from that. So I want to get that research in, but I thought that it would be good to kind of take a high level look at this and figure out like how we want to represent merchant content in the guide so that we can actually kind of officially get this on the roadmap, get this represented as a milestone so that we got some structure around it and people kind of know how they can contribute to this process. So I'll share just like my thoughts on how this would actually look when it was integrated into the guide, and then we can talk about that and maybe get everybody's opinions and start working on a roadmap for it. So assuming everybody can see my screen okay, just holler if you can't. But I'm here on the current Bitcoin design guide, and as it's been kind of restructured and reorganized lately. And so we've kind of arranged everything. Well, we got some new sections here. We get the kind of introductory sections that give you the kind of the tech primer and the open design, blah, blah, blah. Then we got this whole reference design section, which really reorganizes the guide around this idea that the reference designs are maybe what people are going to the guide to see. We want to see like a sample of what does a well-designed self-custodial Bitcoin product look like. And so we even show these off on the homepage of the design. We've got the daily spending wallet, we've got the savings wallet, upgradable wallet, shared wallet right there. And then we have these kind of resources here, these kind of how it works, these are the kind of like how the technology works, kind of, as it pertains to you as a designer. We've got the resources, which are design files, design research, and all of that. And then kind of the contribution project management stuff down there. So the two places that seem to me like would be, could really benefit from merchant content would be here in the reference designs and here in the resources. So what I'm kind of envisioning is that in the design research section here, we have a, and we may even want to, I don't know, we may want to think about how this section looks and maybe make it a little bit more visual. But I think that Patricia's research should live here on the design research page, in a way that people like, and this would be after she's gone through and anonymized everything and all of that. But the actual like raw research could live on this page so that, anybody who's designing for Bitcoin or whatever else they're doing can benefit from that research. I think that research should be used to inform a new reference design. So you would essentially have a fifth item here that would be like merchant portal or merchant point of sale or something to that effect. And so, very similar to how, we have these kind of appealing looking, reference design samples here. We would have another tab here that instead of showing like a wallet design, it would show like a point of sale design or something. And, when we clicked into it, it would kind of expand out like this, and we would have different tabs for design considerations. Maybe that's how you onboard the merchant, how they manage their funds, how the point of sale looks, maybe how security is handled. Maybe you don't want employees of the business to be able to have full access to the funds, and so you have to kind of do some security considerations there. But I think there's a real rich opportunity for a reference design here, and the idea would be that this reference design would be informed by a couple of different conversations. One, it would be informed by the research that Patricia's done, and then two, would be informed by conversations with companies like Galoy, companies like OpenNode, Ibex Mercado, projects like BTC Pay Server. I listed a lot of different things there, and we kind of have a spectrum of different projects there. On one end, on one end of the spectrum, you have stuff like OpenNode and Ibex Mercado, which is kind of like a custodial, we're giving you access to Bitcoin and Lightning as a service. And then you have in the middle, you have stuff like Bitcoin Beach that it's like, it's all open source, but someone in your community manages that. And then you have something like BTC Pay Server, which is, fully open source and fully self-custodial and all of that. And, we've been having this conversation in the community lately about getting more Bitcoin companies involved and actually contributing to the open design process, getting them comfortable with speaking up in the community. And I think we've had really good results lately, especially with at least especially on the merchant side, just with Galoy just coming in and saying, hey, we want feedback on what we're working in. So I think that we should take those conversations and utilize them to form a really good merchant reference design. So yeah, that's kind of long-winded, but I know, but that's basically what I'm going for here is let's, help Patricia get her stuff anonymized and worked into the research section. And let's use that to form a really nice looking merchant reference design. And that would be my vision for getting merchants on the roadmap.
Love that idea of bringing Patricia's research right back in and to the front and in front of the eyes of everyone, but then in a visual way, because we're also visual beings. So love the idea.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. I think one more thing I would add too is a lot of people have requested, and I know we talked about this being maybe like a final thing for when we get this version 3 of the design guide ready, but a lot of the merchants I was speaking to, English wasn't their first language, and they were asking if it's going to be in Spanish mostly. I think that was the first request. So I don't know if we could use this as like a little playground for testing Spanish features within the guide, or if people would be open to it. But I was talking to like a lot of people at the conference, and they expressed the merchants that they work with wanting more Spanish content to be available. And I know Dulce is leading a big effort with Lightning there, so maybe I could ask her to assist. But if that would be something you guys would be interested in, maybe working on translations too on this specific section.
Lots of thoughts.
Translations is a big thing. We've talked about it a bit in the past, but we're changing the content so much over the last year or so. Like, we didn't really, I guess, want to settle on it, but I guess we could lay out a kind of vision of what it would look like and make sure it's like wasn't going to change too much. We could get some translation efforts into it. But
my question here would also be, do the merchants need the software to be localized, or does this guide need to be localized? Because this guide is for software builders. Because I understand that merchant software and general education should be localized, but this is not necessarily that. But anyways, I wanted to get on something else. I have a question with merchants in general. So merchant to me says, I'm purchasing something at a store, which, with Bitcoin Beach, so focus on real world interactions. There's some small booth maybe or a store. I scan a QR code. We talk to each other. Then there's e-commerce with BTC Pay. Does a ton of stuff too. With Lightning, we're also getting into logging in with Lightning. I can deposit some money to, I don't know, I can feed chicken. I can deposit some money to like some game, which is more of a third-party service, but it's in a way it's kind of similar. And then Stephen, I think you also mentioned exchange interactions where I can I exchange and I withdraw via Lightning to my wallet or something. So that kind of like, what do we have any scope we want to put on this? Anything we don't want to get into or see separate from all of this?
I don't know what everyone would say here, but from what I've learned is people are using it for primarily three major things. The first would be like a shop, like a web shop, if they were selling things online. The second, or I guess that could also include like brick and mortar interactions physically, like Bitcoin Beach in person, if you're doing like a hard good, like I give you a banana and you give me Lightning. And then the second would be like a tip jar or donation section that people are using that for BTC Pay. I noticed a lot of people are integrating that. And then the third would be people are doing like workshops and classes, especially in like El Salvador. People are starting to do like surf classes and photos and things like that, which are something that presents totally differently than I think in e-commerce sites or even just a hot wallet. So those would be the main ones I've seen, but we could certainly add in other ones that people, and I'm not going to stop doing user research too. This is just the first wave, but I would say those should for sure be included. Those are like patterns that I see come up over and over again. So if those are use cases that people have, I definitely want to make sure that they're available. Particularly, like Stephen was on the call too with Galloy, and they really want to see and use and contribute to the merchant section. So I want to make sure at least a basic framework is available so people can learn and people can add to what they're learning. And I don't know, maybe that's like the first wave, and if we find more use cases that seem to be occurring, we could potentially add them in. But that's where my mind is at with the whole thing.
Okay. And would we primarily focus on the user facing side, the customer side, or also the like Galloy had the dashboard to manage the several stores and all of that, which seems like a whole thing in itself.
Yeah, in my mind, it would be both. I don't know if that would take too much time or sort of in terms of a milestone, if that feels too heavy or too dense compared to everything else we're doing. But I think having both available would be great if we could somehow organize that into like a side for users and a side for people who are like setting up shop or building tools. Maybe there's a way to have that in one localized space where we say, like, getting started for people who are wanting to accept Bitcoin for the first time, and then maybe one for like tools for building. I know traditionally the design guide is for people who are building and creating these companies, but I think it could be nice too in this instance to have it be more of like a peer-to-peer section for individuals or businesses if they're smaller and wanting to get started. Would that be too ambitious, do you think?
So here's my thoughts on that. I think user facing and backend is I think we need both of those things. Especially, if our goal here is to increase self custody of Bitcoin, then you have to think about business owners and how they self custody their Bitcoin. So I think that the backend is very important. I think that my assumption, could be wrong here, but my assumption is that the user front end for a merchant portal, or I'm sorry, the like customer front end for a merchant portal is probably maybe one of the easier sides of that, though maybe not now that I think about it. But I think that they're both incredibly important sides to that. So I would agree with you, Patricia, that I think we should absolutely focus on both sides of that. I would disagree on the point about trying to like include more like user facing content in here, because I think that the guide is just filled with so much builder focused content that I just, it seems out of place, and I worry that a user is going to be on the website and someone links them to a page about the user facing content, and then they end up stumbling onto a page about the builder focused content. I feel like that's going to be very confusing. I agree though that the material that you're proposing is very much needed in that world. I would recommend that user facing stuff be something separate to the guide, like a separate website, a separate campaign, whatever you want to call it. But I do agree that we need both backend, like both merchant and customer facing stuff in a complete merchant section.
Yeah, so with all of this, my main concern is just that this is insane amount of work. So we need like another 10 people to come in and help out, make all of this stuff happen. And for practical reasons, I'm curious what the smallest thing is that we could start. In Patricia's PR, I suggested just starting with summarizing the research and using that as a foundation for maybe some personas, maybe some use cases, and then maybe tackling one use case, whichever it may be, like invoice form or whatever, something, and then like kind of just seeing where it takes us, and maybe trying to open some issues, trying to gather some research and some references to some of the other sections. But yeah, it's a beast, I think. What do you think?
I think the simplest form probably would be, because Patricia's already done the research, that's, and this may be easier said than done, because I know you said it's actually incredibly difficult, Patricia, but just because that research is already there, I think creating a simplified kind of like research results page would probably be the lowest hanging fruit. But I agree that it is going to be hard, and but it seems to me like a worthy endeavor. It seems like the kind of content that the guide should be designing for, especially now that people are actually using this in practice in El Salvador. I think it's going to be complicated, and I'm not proposing that this is something that we can just like merge within a month here. This would be a very long process, I think. This would be a months long process at the very least. I don't think it's going to be as hard as V1 of the guide, because I think in V1 of the guide, everyone was trying to figure out what is this that we're building. And I don't think this, I don't necessarily know if it might even be as hard as V2 of the guide. I don't think it's as hard as, it may not be as hard as V2 of the guide, because I don't think that there's going to be a lot of kind of, debating back and forth, the best way to simplify Lightning and all this kind of stuff. But it's definitely a lot of work in terms of, a lot of Figma work in designing that. So I fully agree that it's a lot of work and a long process. And, I'm not proposing right here that we just, drop everything and commit to it right now. I'm just proposing that, we start this discussion and figure out what would go into it, and rally people who would be interested in working on this, so that it can be on the roadmap.
That would be great. And I agree with a lot of those points. One thing I'm wondering, just so we can work more transparently and not be doing these sort of one-on-one side, I'm sure that will be helpful too, but for people who don't want to be on camera, but for companies, like when we were in the call at Bitcoin Beach, I wonder if just setting up on the calendar, maybe once a month or every couple of weeks, a merchant like jam session or a merchant review area where if people wanted to participate in research or give us their feedback, or we could seek questions from them that would make this better. I don't know if that's something that would be helpful, but we could maybe open it up to merchants or companies that we're wanting to build and see how we could help them and include what they want to see in this research as well. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, that sounds good
That
to me.
sounds very generic. I think that only works if you make it very specific.
Well, I'm thinking like the design review, right? Like we basically left it open where people could bring in and give us their questions, and we would provide pointed feedback, right? And so could we not just open it up, and if merchants want to come to us, we could say, how can we help you? What do you need? What do you want to see here?
Yeah, I mean, in
We can also just
practical
scrap the
terms,
idea altogether, but I just thought we could have it be open to them.
no, in
I mean,
practical terms, the thing was that with having the weekly design review, one of the reasons why we stopped it because Connor kind of had to go out and specifically get people on. There was not enough volunteer interest. But I mean, if that's something that the group can make happen, then yeah, let's do it. Just depends
yeah, I
on
think that,
the initiatives.
yeah, I mean, I think inviting people from, people from companies or false projects doing merchant-related work in Bitcoin. I think inviting them to the calls is a great idea. Like especially if we're doing like a guide jam session that's focusing on merchant work, let's invite them. If they're going to show or not, they may, some of them may do it, some of them may not. I don't see anything wrong with inviting them.
Yeah, if it fails, it fails. I think experimenting and trying that out at least helps them be aware that we are working on this and there are tools for them. And it's not like my fear or anything. A lot of people have been asking about this, but I think I would want people to use this, and I would want this to be sort of best practices that everyone gets to contribute to. So even if they say no, like at least they know that this is something that a few months from now is available for them to use or give feedback on. I don't know. If you guys think it's worth trying out, I'm willing to reach out to people.
And if we start if we actually start if Christoph can take a single Figma board and post it to Twitter, and then it'll just go viral with people arguing about it, right? If we make a start making a a reference design, just even like a single Figma frame, like this is what we're working on for the design guide. This would be a merchant, POS terminal. People, we post that kind of stuff, and we ask merchant companies for feedback. That gives them something very actionable to provide feedback on. I'll tell you exactly what I think about this design that you're working on. So some of it's too, I think, just around providing people with making it clear what we're asking for input on. But yeah, I think let's trying to get these companies and project involved is overall a great idea.
Yep.
Okay.
I
Thanks.
concur.
And I know we're almost out of time, so I don't want to take up too much time. But thanks for the feedback, and also Stephen, I would welcome projects like liquidity or things that are adjacent to merchant section too to jump in and ask the questions like you did the other day when you were DMing me. Maybe we can just have it be in the open.
So in practical terms, we could do something what we did at the beginning of the guide, which just work with a skeleton table of contents, basically. Just write down ideas of here, this is a page we could have, this is what page we could have, and then kind of work in a Google Doc and just revise it, or some other document tool that's more privacy preserving, whichever. So that could be one thing, to just kind of list out content we could have and structure it a bit. And then the second effort could be the other practical thing we talked about, which would be summarizing that research and preparing a page in the guide. It could live wherever now. If we don't have a merchant section, it could live somewhere else. We could move it later. It doesn't matter. But just get that good research and turn that into use cases and personas that then can be used to build on top of later. How does that sound? Any other things you'd like to see? It would be
That
cool
sounds
if
great.
if by next jam session we could already have some of that stuff done.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm interested in. Let's figure out, just start brainstorming ideas for what would go into that reference design merchant thing section. Start off simple in a Google Doc or equivalent format, and we can pass the ideas around and iterate on them like that.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Any guess when will this section be done? Anybody?
End
there?
of summer.
Ooh, this year or next year?
Done? When is anything done? When is anything done in the design guide?
Aim for 2025. Be safe, be reasonable,
Which side of the equator?
2025. The 2025. That's a very
2025.
corporate answer. Hey, Christoph, 2 weeks.
Awesome. Well, it depends on us, so let's make it happen.
2 weeks.
Okay, so anything else? I feel like some of the things we talked about were fairly loose. Anything else anyone wants to chat about, or are we good to wrap up?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm pretty good.
Okay, awesome. Then thank you all for the conversation, and let's make this stuff happen.